So welcome back to part three of our interview with Jeremy and India. So you had asked us a question before the break: is the world healthier or sicker? Sicker. But I'd like to ask you. I'd like you to address something that you said just before we took a break, and that is the topic of sugar. Because here in the U.S., it's like it's rampant, and people don't even know how much sugar they're consuming. And I recently became more aware of this. And it's like if you go to the grocery store and you pick up any package, 9 out of 10 packages will say there's either high fructose corn syrup or sugar in it. And I'd like you to address how sugar is really affecting our health, because I think it's a huge piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
Yes, it is a huge piece of the puzzle. And if I wanted to go out and make a nation sick and to keep them sick and keep them occupied, and sugar would be a major one that I'd want to be daily consumed. Now, you have to, it's a classic story. I live in Barbados currently, and sugarcane is the main, one of their main exports. But that's, of course, not what sugar is. They take the sugar cane, they squeeze it out, and they have this lovely juice. And that's fantastic, as nature intended. And you wouldn't need very much. But that's not where we stop. They actually extract the molasses, and then they centrifugally spin it, I'm told. And the longer and fast they spin it, the more the white crystal. The first spin, you get the brown sugar, which people think is the good stuff, only because it's got a few minerals still connected to it. There's some remnants of the living planet, the plant that it was meant to be part of. But if they then keep respinning and respinning and respinning until you ended up with this white crystalline thing that we're familiar with sugar, and then they go and refine it further. And so what we've created is something that was never, ever, ever, ever supposed to be in that format. It was not meant to be removed from the whole. And unfortunately for us, most things that are good in nature for us to eat are sweet. And most things that are poison are bitter. Not everything, but that's the general rule. That's why dogs will sniff, and most animals will sniff and just taste it, and they want to know whether they're testing whether it's sweet or sour or what have you, And so it's a wonderful thing to put into foods, because your natural, it's tricking the body to think this is good, this is sweet, and isn't everything in life sweet? It's wonderful, and really and truly, it should be called what it really is, which is sweet heroin. Now, it's very strong for some people, but the reality is that your entire blood supply should only contain 2 teaspoons of sugar for your entire blood supply. And your body works very, very hard at maintaining the blood sugar level. It's one of the major things that it's doing. If you go and drink a standard bottle of Coke, there's 16 teaspoons, maybe more, 16 teaspoons of refined sugar in there, let alone anything else. So if you start from, there's my dog whining because she's upset that we're taking so much sugar. But if you understand that there's, if you understand, she says she's an empath, you see, so she can't help.
She feels
anyway,
for us humans.
She does. But if you understand this 2 teaspoons and you consume 16, and just at this level, and of course that most Americans and other Westerners are consuming more than that. I had a chap in New Zealand that came to see me that was like that, and I asked him what he drank in a day, and he said 8 cups of coffee. And I've learned to ask, 1 teaspoon of coffee or 1 shot, and he said no, 3 shots of coffee. So actually he was having 24 cups of coffee.
Oh.
And he would put 3 to 4 teaspoons of sugar in each cup of coffee. And then I said, okay, are you drinking any, I'm giving you one of the extremes, but I don't think it's as extreme as you think on the modern day that's turning up at the legalized drug pushers doctors, and doctors don't ask these questions. And then I said, do you drink anything else? And he said, yeah, probably 2 to 3 liters of Coke a day.
In a day?
Right? A day. So his entire system was in an acidic. Now, the body must remain alkaline, and Coke is about as acidic as battery acid. So his entire body was doing everything it possibly could to stabilize his blood sugar, which it was not able to do. And one of the ways that the body does this is to use calcium to buffer acidity. And we know calcium is involved in buffering the blood sugar, right? So if you haven't got enough calcium, it rips it from the bones. In fact, we're told after drinking a can of Coke, you will start urinating calcium from your bones within 10 minutes. Now, calcium makes people, if your calcium's in the wrong place, it makes you very nervy, very jittery, very emotional, very aggressive, very, very ready for fight and flight, because all you know is you feel this. Well, hello, that's most of America right now, And so in that state, how can you function normally? And you go to the doctor and they go, well, here's some antidepressants. They're not antidepressants. They're zombie medicine. So you see, when you go to the doctor, the first place these doctors ought to have been is, tell me what you're drinking. Tell me what you're eating. And if someone sat in front of a non-doctor and said, I'm drinking 24 cups of coffee a day with 8, 16, 25, 32 teaspoons of sugar and 3 liters of Coke, I think anyone on the planet would go, stop.
Jeremy, it's so bad. I'm going to tell you, I was going to my obstetrician. I was well pregnant with my daughter, and I used to tell the guy I didn't like to drink water. And he told me if I drink iced tea or lemonade, it's mostly water, and that counts. This is from a professional. I was
now. Go ahead.
Well, I do have to stand up for one doctor who I don't even know his name, but this was years ago, and I'm going to tell him myself. But I went to, I was in Vietnam and Thailand for 5 weeks on business, and all that I drank for 5 weeks was Diet Coke with no ice. And I came home. And luckily, I had known about aspartame beforehand. I just didn't pay too much attention. And I went to pee. So I went to pee one day, and it was like burning. It's like, what the hell? So I go to the doctor and tell him that, and his first question was, have you been drinking Diet Coke?
Wow. That's a good
So
guy.
lucky for me that he was able to ask the question, and I say, well, yeah, for 5 weeks, that's all I drank. And so, and that's the other thing. I mean, the chemicals like aspartame that mimic different diseases, it's criminal, really, I think.
Well, Roger, it is criminal, and the audience needs to know, but it's been set up because, of course, there are some good doctors out there. I've met them, and I know some are listening to our shows because they've told me, and their patients have told me. But it's rare, because let's take that as a perfect example at a low level. All right. But remember this case history. You're either getting more toxic and therefore more sick and pushing the disease deeper into all these serious diseases that as a people on this planet we face, or you're getting less toxic and you're getting better and more vibrant and you don't feel you're aging. You just feel great. Now, take that point in your history. If you'd have gone to an allopathic doctor who's perfectly nice, a lovely doctor, and you like them, but they've been trained by pharmaceutical companies, they will go, well, you've probably got an infection, Roger. It's not worth doing a blood test. It's probably an infection. Here's some antibiotics, and maybe here's something else. And you go, thank you, doctor, and you go away, and you'd probably start, and it probably is bacteria, because remember, I've told you, the environment's changed, and so forth, the bacteria will start to proliferate. So you'll start to feel better, and you'll come and go, thank you, doctor. All right? But what you've actually done is suppress your body trying to get rid of formaldehyde, because aspartame turns to formaldehyde. So has your doctor helped you? No. And if you continue and continue. And when we take case histories, many times there'll be frequently urinary infections. I've got to stop doing this, but it's so easy to urinary
It
infections.
shows what the Dr. Evil for
That's right.
So 90s, and it still has some power there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you know, a lot of women on other would say, you know, I keep getting urinary infections. Well, if you keep giving antibiotics, what antibiotics do is destroy the bacteria in your bowel, which forms 80% of your immune system and your ability to digest much of your food. And if you can't digest food, assuming you're eating real food in the first place, you then can't absorb the nutrients. So you become nutrient deficient, which basically all modern diseases are dehydration, toxicity of a level you can't imagine until you start researching, and nutrient deficiency. And you will never be able to treat those with drugs and more poison. Never. It just doesn't work that way.
So Jeremy, let's take Roger's example. Sorry, Roger. And if he had walked into your office with something like that, how would a naturopath, a natural practitioner,
correct,
work with something like that?
Okay, we would all, and I'm famous for saying it, it would be a case history. So the first thing I would ask him is, what your symptoms? So he would say me, I'm peeing, like I feel like I'm peeing, acid. And you'll be surprised how often these simple, if you listen to the client, they'll tell you, but what's your symptom? Burning. Well, what burns? Acid. So the first things we will ask is, what are you drinking, Roger? Tell me what you're drinking and eating. And of course, it would come out very quickly. How much water a day? You see, let's strip it down to basics. What is if you accept you are a being of light, a spirit, a soul, or whatever you're happy with, in a physical body, right? What is your physical body, your vessel that holds this spirit, this soul, this light, or this being that is you? What is this physical vessel mostly made of?
Water.
Water. And so it is far more than this wet stuff that you've been told about. It is very arguably, and there is brilliant work being done now, and a lot of the suppressed work coming out, it is the living element that brings life. You see, your body is mostly water and then minerals of this planet. And that's why when you pass, which is the correct term as opposed to die, when your spirit, soul, whatever left you, the physical body starts to be go into decomposition from the inside out. Bacteria, viruses start to flourish from the inside out, breaks down the flesh, releases the water and the minerals back to so-called Mother Earth, which is why it's called Mother Earth, right? Your spirit's passed on, you've left. Now, but at a physical level, the water is the most critical thing. And as soon as you start to drop below, fractions of what it's supposed to be, dis-ease is created. The environment changes, your body will recognize this and start to try and remedy that. So my questions to Roger is, what are you drinking? What are you taking? What are you eating? And it will usually reveal itself. And I can tell you a story of someone I saw today, if you like, a little bit later on, which is a young woman, 24, who is knocking on death's door. And how do you get to death's door at 24? Would you like me to share that story?
Please.
No, but yes. But before you do that, I want to go back to the water thing, because that was going to be my follow-up.
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm sitting in a town right now. Where I live, I have a well, but I'm sitting in the town where they voted to fluoridate the water because they were told that it was good for them. And so what's really what really is intriguing to me is that one day I went into a restaurant that I eat here at, and I said, it hit me. It's like, if I order a soda, if I order iced tea, if I order water, if I order coffee, all of those will have fluoride in them because of the water supply here. And I asked the woman that works there, I said, do you filter for fluoride? And she said, well, we have a filter on the Coke machine, and that answered my question, because that's never, hey, once they put those in, they never hardly ever change those. But how does fluoride affect the body, given the fact that water is so important?
It's an excellent question. You know, people ask me questions all the time. What's the remedy for this? What's the remedy for that? And well, how does it affect? Well, the remedy is knowledge. And we're dealing with the most uneducated public, in my view, of our time, because our sources of information are rotten and corrupt to the core. And it's very easy to prove this if this is the first time you've heard this. But taking fluoride, fluoride, if you ask most people what's fluoride for, and they have any knowledge of fluoride, they'll say it's to strengthen your teeth. What a load of rubbish. If that was true, dentists would have been out of business years ago, and they've never been busier, right? If you go and look at if you go and Google fluoride poison, and just look at the images, you'll see sodium fluoride comes in great big canisters with a skull and crossbones on it, the mark of poison. If you research further, and there's many documentaries now on YouTube, of course, by brilliant people whose only intent is the truth, they will tell you it's a byproduct from aluminum smelting, or commonly known correctly as aluminium, but aluminum smelting. And they used to put it into the rivers. But it was killing all the fish, so we can't kill all the fish, so they had to come up with a solution. And if you start to understand how this planet works, and that you are deliberately being poisoned, at least at the top level with knowledge, certainly not down, because if they're being educated stupid, what better way than to start putting it into the water and into the toothpaste? Have you not wondered why they ask you to brush your teeth twice a day, but don't swallow it? Right? It's very important you don't swallow it. Well, if you can't swallow it, how the hell is it healthy to put it in your mouth? But anyway, fluoride is very important because it's a halogen. Now, if you don't know the halogens, fluoride, bromide, chloride, and iodine, if I got those right. And iodine is one of the most essential nutrients to be in your body, and it's estimated 90% of the world's population is deficient in it. The old doctors, when they were real doctors, gave almost only iodine to solve everything, because it mostly did. All right? Now, fluoride, this goes straight to the thyroid, and as a more powerful halogen, kicks out the iodine that's in your thyroid. So your thyroid will start to underfunction. Now, at an extreme level, you might see very obvious thyroid problems, goiter or whatever, But at a lower level, it starts to affect everything going in the body. On top of that, there's chlorine, which you bathe in chlorine, you swim in chlorine. And then anything that's white, meaning flour, pasta, has been bleached with chlorine and sometimes bromine. And so people are consuming these halogens deliberately, knocking out their iodine. Their whole body can no longer function as it was intended to. And we get back into this cycle of you're not sick, you're toxic. The body tries to remedy it. Now, if you want to Google further and start to see what's really going on, you need to look at fluoride used in the Second World War by the Germans in the prisoner of war camps. And it's documented in the, Nuremberg trials. And the reason the Germans put fluoride, documented, unconspiratorial, documented fact, in the water, in the prisoner of war camps, is because sodium fluoride makes people docile. It lowers their IQ, it lowers their critical thinking ability, and it makes you more subservient. Well, if you think about the concentration camps, and that's another story another day, but in general, some of the people used to ask, why didn't they all get together and just storm these buggers to get out? Right. Yeah, sure, someone's going to be killed, but it wasn't long before they realized they were all in trouble. The reason was they're all drugged. They are made apathetic. And if you look at North America, where fluoride is still very much pushed, there is an apathetic population. The critical thinking has been deliberately lowered, and this is becoming very common knowledge now. So again,
we want to add it to the milk now because people are talking about the water. We want to put fluoride in milk.
I have a friend that lives in Ecuador, who was just visiting up in Vancouver, and we were talking one day about fluoride. And he said that because Ecuador doesn't have like a water system like we have here in the United States, they can't put fluoride in the water. So what they've done is they've made it a law that all salt that's served and used in restaurants has to have fluoride in it.
Table salt?
Yeah.
Food, air, water. Those are the pathways that everybody has to consume and participate in. And
Right. And
that's
so
where we have to wake up.
Because they can't get into the there is no common like water supply. So one way they're going to assure that happens is they're going to put it in a food source. Of course, he said people who know about that have sea salt that you can get, but it's not only here. It's kind of everywhere. But like you said, Jeremy, people are starting to wake up.
They are, and this is the project, the Naturally Better Healing hospitals, and it really is a visionary plan, and we have a lot of people involved now. We have, from what I consider real royalty down to ground on the floor people who are equally waking up. They understand that what has happened on this planet is a deliberate poisoning of people to reduce populations, to keep them sick and tired, and to keep them away from truth. It's the only way you stay in power. And I don't think anyone would argue about the 1%, whether you understand, how they got there or not. There's never been a greater division on this planet of wealth and resources and well-being than there is now. But there has been a deliberate poisoning of the people at many, many levels, including the brain. I mean, television. Let's take television, which is what I call it. For God's sake, ask yourself, what are you watching generically? They're telling you what you're watching. You're watching programs. You've been programmed, and you've been programmed in a way that many have woken up to now, that to make you think and believe and behave in certain ways. It's Pavlovian training. If you know about Pavlovian dogs, they basically took some German shepherds, and when they would feed the dogs, they would ring a little bell. And it took a very short period of time before they only needed to ring a bell, and the dogs would salivate. Well, anyone listening will go, well, big deal. It's a huge deal, because what they've managed to do in a few weeks with a single bell is stimulate their autonomic nervous system and make it think food's coming by the association of this bell. Well, here's an example of Pavlovian dog training. Da, 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 da. Now, most people will know that's McDonald's. Okay?
Oh.
Right? Da, da. If you notice most of the adverts, I mean, I haven't seen them for a long time because
I fast forward through them.
Right. But at the end of it, it'll be da, 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 da. They're programming you. And in the TV and in all the programs and all the rest of it, there's stuff going on to get you to believe and behave a certain way. So we've been poisoned at every single level of our existence to create division amongst each other. Black against white, rich against poor, Muslim against Christian, every level to separate us, so we keep infighting. And at a physical level, and it doesn't take much research, people, to find this. Take sodium fluoride and go and look into it. But at every single level, you've been poisoned to keep you below your potential.
Wow.
And this is what this project is about. True healthcare systems. We will not be standing up in our governments and parliaments and senates and saying how many people we treated this year. That's a sick system. We will be standing up and saying how few people we've treated this year, because we've once again embraced the truth, which is your body needs real food. It needs real clean water. It needs clean air. It needs sunlight. It needs exercise. The spirit needs to be able to express itself. It needs to be creative, or whatever you are drawn towards. You need rest, proper rest. You need play. You need all of these things, and then you have healthy people, healthy families, healthy communities, healthy societies, healthy nations. God forbid what we do with that. I tell you what,
I think your dog even agrees with that.
absolutely.
She would give her, she doesn't like
And that-
McDonald's.
That's what we're offering. And a lot of people, very powerful people down, while we live in this 3D system, a lot of powerful people are talking to us because it's time. Because, my friends, you've been lied to at levels you may not fathom just yet.
And you know what, you guys, what's so neat, and I've heard Jeremy say this to people because I'm forever sending people, like, you know, to have consult with this guy, hear what he has to say before you make this huge decision based on, you know, little research. He'll constantly tell people say, how long is it going to take? And he's like, well, we'll start with maybe 12 weeks. He goes, but I don't want to see you for the rest of your life. I want you to get well. And the favor you can do, go tell other people what you've experienced. And that's it. Like, I don't want to become the person you're seeing every, you know, once a month for the next 40 years. That's not working. And
Yeah.
I've never heard of a healer, a health professional in a white coat say that to anybody.
Well, let's expand on that fantastic point.
Well,
I-
before we go there, let's break for just a second here.
Right.
And I think then we want to hear more about what's going on with the healing center itself.
Okay.